Hello again. Welcome to Along the Rock, our podcast that pays homage to the people of the Sauk Valley and the river that runs through it. My name is Mark Morris. I'll be your host. My guest today, another author, another local author, by the way, Amanda McNeill. And Amanda, thanks for coming in.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
I had no idea when we started doing this particular type of segment with talking to local authors that there were so many local authors.
There are a lot of local authors.
How did you get started doing this sort of work?
It was just, I wanted to start writing. I think I've always wanted to write. Ever since I was in the 7th grade, I wanted to be a writer because my uncle used to take like the Saturday Evening Post and Life magazine and Look, and in one of these magazines was an article about a 7th grader who'd written a book, and that was kind of inspirational for me.
Yeah.
But I never did anything about it at the time until about 1976, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do this. That's the key to writing. If a lot of people say, I'd like to be a writer, but maybe I'll write a book someday. But if you say someday is like the equivalent of never. So you need to just make sure, you have to get your pencils, you get your paper, you sit down, you start, and then you make that commitment to do it.
Okay, do you, well, this is kind of, I guess, hardware question, but do you write longhand or do you use a keyboard, or how do you go about starting a book?
I used to use a pencil and a notebook, and now I've graduated to using a pen and a notebook.
Okay.
So the contrast is better when
Sure.
I write the first draft in a spiral notebook. I use notes. First, before I start writing, I have notes, copious notes. From the notes, I create a synopsis. Then from the synopsis, I write a book.
Okay.
And then at maybe the second draft, I will start typing it.
Oh, okay. So you kind of clear out the cobwebs and start getting down to brass tacks, as they say. What is your specialty, if you have one? What do you like to concentrate on? What kind of stories, or nonfiction, or whatever it happens to be?
All of my work is fiction. My first book was dystopian fiction. I thought I would continue doing this, but I was distracted. And the Haven series takes place in the present, small town America. Tag for this, the subtitle is like, so you think you know what goes on in your small town. So
that's a good title.
And then in Infinite Chain, it's the smaller the town, the darker its secrets. So it's just about these first two in this series are about life in a small town, and someone who is just who returns to their small town and is sort of astonished at all the little undercurrents of corruption and deceit.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've kind of gotten, I haven't written anything per se. I wrote radio news for about 40 years, but that's kind of a different animal. But I've had a real desire the last few years to read about small towns and rural areas. Has that been your feeling all along, that's a point of intense interest for you?
I don't know if I would say it was a point of intense interest. I would say that I write by observation. I see things that are happening and I write about them. People I know, I write about them. I listen. I'm notorious for eavesdropping on conversations.
Okay.
Life sketches. I wrote most of life sketches either at the Hardys in Morrison or the Hardys here in Rock Falls. And I would take my earbuds, and I had a Sony CD player, and I could put these in. But I didn't have to turn the CD player on. I could be listening to someone talking, and they would never know, because they think I can't hear them because I'm listening to
Right.
music.
Well, if you're going to do it, I guess that's the best way
Yeah.
to do it. People otherwise might get a little self-conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Some might even desire to get a little obnoxious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you listening to us?
I have my pen, and I'm writing. It's just, they're completely oblivious to me.
Some writers will say that writing is difficult for them. They have to do it. They feel they are impelled to do it, but it's very difficult. They call it, some of them even call it like torture. Other people just sit down with an idea and they just go to town right away. Are you someone who has to deal with any writer's blocks along the way?
Not per se. If I get stuck, I can get up and clean the bathroom or bake cookies. But as far as what you really call writer's block, no, I don't have that so much. Sometimes, you will struggle with a passage. Well, you can just, skip that part and go on to something else, and eventually it'll come to you. But writing, as far as being torture, as far as being easy, I'm in the middle.
Okay.
It's, writing is hard work. It is work. You need to commit yourself to it. Yes, I am going to do this. If anyone says it's like turning on a faucet, I think that's just outrageous that they would. They must not be doing it right.
Yeah, I can think of one person I know, and I'm sure there are more, but Isaac Asimov, the science fiction writer, he said he would. Well, it's obvious from the evidence that he just wrote book after book after book after book. And you wonder what kind of a mind can do that. Was the man a genius?
He was a member of Mensa.
Well, I guess that answers that question.
Yeah. And one time, someone says to him, "How do you write so many books?" And he said, "I like to type."
The ideas are no problem. It's the typing. Wow. Well, that's interesting. Well, tell us a little bit about what you have that's available for public purchase, if you will.
Well, I have these 6 books. Like I said, Life Sketches was my first book. It is dystopian fiction. It is available online at Kindle Direct Publishing as a paperback book. It's available as an ebook. All the rest of these are available the same, or else I will sell them out of the trunk of my car.
Okay.
So
I've heard that so many times in talking to local authors. Just follow me to my car and I'll show you what I've got. But why not? And there are so many people who do write in the world that sometimes it's difficult to know, other than what you see on the cover, or maybe read in the wings, that what kind of book you would like to read and what kind might not interest you. Now, the first one you said was self-published.
they're all self-published.
They all are. Okay. Had you ever approached a publisher about
Yes.
helping you?
Life Sketches, I approached 85 editors. No, agents. I approached
85?
85 agents. And like I said before, being a new author with a book that long, they weren't interested. And after that, I had sort of exhausted the source of agents who would be willing to handle dystopian fiction. So, like I said, I put it in a drawer for a long time until someone called me up and said, and told me about self-publishing, and I'd never heard of it. And she sent me an article from the St. Paul Pioneer Press.
Okay.
It was a very long article. I read it, and I didn't understand it. I gave it to my husband. He didn't understand it. So I read it several times, and I thought, all right, I think I can do this. And, it was sort of, first of all, I had to have someone format it, because I am not that technologically astute. So I have to hire. I have had to hire someone to format it for me. And then I have to have a cover. The cover was done by my best friend's son. I asked my best friend, quite an author, or quite an artist herself, and I said, would you do a cover for my book? And she emailed me back, and it was in capital letters, and it said, "Are you out of your mind?" But she said her son would do it. He was in college, and he did I was very impressed with this, because this is sort of a take on Vitruvian Man. And a person is trying to escape from his environment. And so I had to have the cover. So I've got the cover. And then the person who formatted it for me also put the cover in the right number of pixels for a paperback this size,
Okay.
and for the e-cover, the e-book cover.
Right, sure.
And so then, after I acquire the formatted versions, then I upload it to Kindle Direct Publishing, which at the time was still CreateSpace, and to Amazon.
Join us Friday, April 11th at 6:30 p.m. at the Next Picture Show in Dixon for Chapter and Verse Open Mic Night. Presented by the Radar Free Press and Sauk Creative Writers Group. Enjoy live readings from local authors sharing their works. Authors, pre-register by texting or calling 815-994-8006. Want to sponsor and support events like this? Text 815-200-6404 for more info. See you there.
Now, if you have a book on Amazon, my guess is that that's quite a big step up for exposure. Just because, not so much?
No, not so much.
That
No.
was my guess. I mean,
I mean-
Amazon is a huge seller of many things.
But there's hundreds of thousands of just self-published books, too.
Yeah, sure. So it's still, you're wading through a big library all by itself and just deciding what you want to read. The other 5 we've got here, these are all part of a series?
Yes. They're all part of a series.
Tell me where that started and, where it went.
It was, I'm not really sure how it started. It was,
We're asking
But
you to go way back here.
it was like I had so many notes, and you put your notes together and you put them in a synopsis, and it sort of fills us, just sort of develops.
Uh-huh.
So it's about a woman who owns a bookstore in a large city, maybe 250,000 people. And her aunt dies. Her aunt had raised her. So when her aunt dies, she comes home to her small town to take care of her aunt's affairs, sell the house, and, dispose of her furniture and things.
Sure.
All right, so she begins to find out things about her aunt that she didn't know, because they didn't, they lived maybe an hour and a half apart. And she saw her several times a year, so she finds out her aunt had died. The neighbors found her aunt dead on the kitchen floor. The police just assumed she had fallen. She was an elderly woman. She had fallen. She'd struck her head. And so the police just dismissed it as an accident. But Aunt Cassandra was part of a sewing circle. She was active in her community, and she had very well-read, knowledgeable friends who were also active. They said, no, we do not believe she fell, because she was so active, and vigorous. We think she was murdered, and we know who did it. All right, so the niece, Mallory, she continues to clean the house, and she finds a journal underneath her aunt's pillow, and she starts reading it, and her aunt had written something intimate about one of her friends, that the friend was dying of cancer, and she had refused to tell her daughter, because her daughter was like really disinterested, and she wouldn't really care, So she closes the journal and she says, what do I do with this? Do I read it? It's sort of a violation of someone's privacy.
Sure.
She continues cleaning the bedroom. She finds a box of journals under the bed, and there is a note addressed to her, and it says, Mallory, please please read these. I want you to read these and share them with Carl and Temple next door. They were the next door neighbors. And so she was quite taken aback by this. So she started reading these journals, and she found out so much about her aunt that her aunt had never told her. And she began to realize that, yes, perhaps her aunt's friends were right. Perhaps she was murdered because she was investigating the disappearance of the grandson of one of her friends. He had gone to work one day. And he never came home. He just disappeared with his work truck and all. And then she was also looking into the death of a teller at the bank. Her husband was a real estate agent in town. And Aunt Cassandra was convinced she could not have committed suicide. She was murdered. And so, and Aunt Cassandra was just digging. She was putting pieces together, writing it in her journal.
Sure.
And so that's pretty much how that's pretty much the basis of these two.
So the story goes on from there.
Yeah, the story. And like at the end of these two, it comes to a satisfactory conclusion. But again, there's just this hint that there could be something more, like if you're really interested. And then with at the beginning of Menace, it starts, I try to explain, basically how she had reached at this point in her life, what had happened here. Mm-hmm. And
okay.
So.
I don't want to give away everything now.
Yeah.
Talking to Amanda McNeill, who is a resident of the Prophetstown area. And for those who may not be at all familiar with your work, how does someone ring you up, as they used to say, or somehow get in contact with you another way, if they might be interested in grabbing the whole series, or just one of them, or something else? Maybe they want some advice on writing.
Oh, they could do that. Sure. I do have a website. I think it's AmandaMcNeill.com, I think.
Okay,
yeah,
makes sense.
Makes sense. You could probably, you just look me up online. Yes, I would be available for speaking. I do beta reading. I would be willing to give advice on writing.
Sure. Your phone number I have here is 815-537-5479.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a landline. Don't try to text me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess those are the two best ways. I've also got and if this is private, please say so, but Word Fury 316.
Yes. At yahoo.com.
Yahoo.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have various and sundry ways to reach you. What would a series like this in its entirety, what would you charge for that?
They're $15 a piece.
15?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a lot these days.
Mm-hmm.
And there are more and more paperbacks coming out, and fewer and fewer hardcover books. Of course, there's so much online too that, and people have Kindle and the ones you've mentioned already. So, Amanda, I want to thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You bet. And Amanda McNeill is who we've been talking with. I'm Mark Morris, and I would like to thank Amanda once again. Also, the entire crew for allowing us to put this program together on a regular basis. Hope you can join us again next time along the rock.